We're back once again on the 60 MGA restoration project. We're going to start out today by putting on the other taillight housing, or plinth, whatever you want to call it. One thing you'll notice about these as you're installing them is this rubber pad here doesn't exactly line up really well to the housing. Go grab the other pad and housing and I'll show you. All right, so here we have the pad and the housing here. Now, if you'll notice, we always find out is this stuff never actually lines up really well around the edges here, and this arc is never real smooth. And like here, it's a little bit narrow here, and it'll be fat down here. So you kind of have to work it as you're putting it on to get it to line up and look pretty decent. So I'll go through that here in just a minute here. So this, being a 1600, has these bigger taillight housings that use the same light here as the 1500s did, but then they added a round light here and separated the turn signal away from this light to make it a little more visible and to get rid of that disconnect relay box to make the turn signals work. Now there is a top and a bottom to this, because this is a little fatter here than it is there. So that's the top. And then the wires here, you got to pull the wires through this center hole here, but then you got to separate the wires out at this point and get them through these holes before you put it on. Well, of course, after you get it through here, of course. Now, black is ground wires always. Red is your running lights. And then the Lucas wiring diagrams always put green and white, and then green and red as left and right turn signals. So we know we want a green and white and one of the blacks to go up through this hole for the turn signal, and the rest of them need to come through here for the brake light and marker light. And then you want to go ahead and get some bolts in here. There's 2 bolts in the bottom. Now you want to just get them in there and just get them snugged, and then you got to actually kind of work snugging one of those, snugging these down one at a time and working the seal around to get it to sit right, preferably with a nylon tool, which I'll show you in a minute when I go grab it. All right, so the way I like to do this, I like to get this thing bolted on there kind of just finger tight. And then you're gonna use these plastic or vinyl, nylon, I think they're made of, fiberglass reinforced nylon trim tools, or interior trim tools that you can buy just about anywhere these days. Most people will pick them up at, like, say, Harbor Freight. You can find the same sets at some of the different part stores and places, and usually Harbor Freight will be a few bucks cheaper. But these things won't scratch the paint up. You still want to be a bit careful. And you can use this to work the seal all the way around to get it sitting where you want it. And then what I'll tend to do, you can slide that thing right along that edge and kind of bring that out where you need it. And what I'll tend to do is try to get this reasonably close to where I think it needs to be. And I'll kind of snug the top or the bottom up just a little bit. And then work, say if I start at the bottom or the top, let's say I'll start at the top here. Snug that bolt up just a little bit, work this around here so far, then snug the bottom up a little bit and work it around there. And until you get it all where you think you want it. If you tighten it down too much, you won't be able to move the seal. If it's too loose, it won't stay in place. You're just going to pull it down till it's kind of down into the seat here, but not like tight. And you can work this thing around. May have it a little too tight. And you also want to make sure you got the height okay to where it's sitting okay down here as well as up here, because you're not really going to be able to slide it up and down. See how it wants to pull back underneath, because I don't have it quite the right tightness yet to really hold it there. And sometimes I'll need to, maybe I got the bottom just a little too loose. Just snug that up just a fuzz. Or I don't, there's my problem. I need that over a little bit more. And then there's a little bit of slop in there, so you got to play with trying to make them both look the same too. It does not want to go in from the top side. If you try to do this with a screwdriver, you will destroy the paint around the edge of the housing here. This thing is not wanting to play nice today, is it? And that's the problem, is like this part of it tends to be narrow, so you're really working to try to get that over the edge. Come on. Well, it's not wanting to play nice. Not wanting to pull it over as well as I wanted it to. The other side worked a little bit nicer for me. And sometimes you gotta get in there too and snug it down a little bit more. It's all about finding that balance of how tight you've got it to hold it where you want it, while still getting this to be able to move a little bit. Then you just work it like that on the top, and then you come down, snug the bottom, do the same thing, work it around the bottom until you got it where you want it. Sometimes you'll never get it quite exactly because the shape of this thing is just not smooth and straight where this is. So next we need to put the actual taillight bases on, the housings. Now there's a seal that goes underneath of that as well, and the seal has these 8 holes in there, but they're not actually holes that are already punched through. So you need to punch through 4 of those to get these wires through there. I like to just run a drill bit up through them, but you don't want to like completely cut them off. You want the seal to still kind of seal it off. That's what keeps water from getting up in there. Of course, the way this is made, there's not a lot of water getting up there anyway, but And then these taillight housings should be 1032. What I did was I grabbed a tap and just chased them out so that the screws will fit nice. And in this case here, I'm going ahead and leaving the old wires in place for the moment, just as a reference as to which one goes to which side for when I go to hook them up. I would like to replace all of these little copper ground pieces here, but I seem to be out of them currently, so I got to get some before I finish this up. So we got to slide this up in around here and just work this around till it's sitting in there. And these things will, you know, you can tell that these holes line up right to the holes in the bases there. So it's, you know, pretty easy to tell which way they go on. And it's just a matter of putting a few screws through there. Now the upper lights are a little bit more involved and a little bit more finicky to put in, but that's the basics of putting the lower lights in. Now, since I don't have any more of these, I'm also listing as ground connectors to actually put on these ends, I can't do the upper lights right now because that all has to be done before you slide it in. So we'll have to do that probably next time, or maybe later in this video, depending on whether this video spans just 1 week or what I'm doing next week as well. Now, the order in which I'm assembling this car isn't necessarily the best order of assembly. It has more to do with what do I have available in any given week to work with that we either remember to order or isn't on back order. And I'm just trying to make sure that each week, whatever I have with me, since I'm not in my shop, we're just trying to get what we can done that week. So I am kind of jumping back and forth a little bit and seemingly a bit scatterbrained in how I'm assembling it, but that's why. Because some weeks I'll forget maybe some screws or not have quite enough of a specific screw that I need. So I'm just saying, okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to something else that we have everything we need sitting here right now to work on. Like right now, we were going to do the windshield this week, but we can't because he couldn't find the windshield screws, and when we ordered them, they're on back order. So now I'm just working on a lot of the little stuff. But there is an actual order of assembly to this, and there are certain parts that have to be assembled first in order to make everything work. Like for instance, we cannot put the grill in until all the air ducting is in here that goes up to the heater and the carburetors. But we can't put the air ducting in until all of these electrical connections are made for the headlights and turn signals. And then we got some horn wiring and stuff here too. So, and as you can see, I've already put the headlight buckets in and the turn signal bases on, and I didn't film that. I was just getting that done. That was like last week. And one thing I do want to say, never underestimate how long it actually takes to assemble the car. Because if you rush the process, it won't look as good. You could potentially scratch the paint somewhere too. So it almost always takes longer than you think it will. Keep that in mind when you're assembling your own car.